Hey, it's Ray, and welcome to Sober Without God. And today we're going to talk about what made me start drinking and what made me continue drinking. And on Thursdays, we talk about deconversion. Saturdays, we have a fun book review. But today, I'm going to talk about being alcohol free and what made me start drinking. If you have a drinking problem, I encourage you to go see your qualified healthcare medical professional or try the Reframe app, which I highly recommend to you. Go seek the help of a medical provider if you have alcohol use disorder. And I want to talk a little bit today about something I've never really talked about, why I started drinking in the first place. It's kind of silly, to be honest. I was around 30 years old. I was working as a minister full time, well, part time, really. I was what you call a bivocational minister. It's a minister who is kind of a part-time minister. I'm not a minister anymore. I'm deconverted from that, deconverted from the Christian faith. But I was also working a full-time job in sports medicine. So I was working two really full-time jobs and dedicating myself to both. And I was under a lot of stress, had a new family, and I had never really done alcohol before. I'd never uh, had a drinking issue before. I had drinking issues in my family. I knew they were there, but I'd never really known how serious they were. And I had been reading online about how popular the movie The Big Lebowski was. And so I had some downtime and we were in the middle of a living situation. So I got to watching The Big Lebowski, which is a movie I absolutely adore still. And my daughter and I have some Big Lebowski in jokes, and we quote it to each other a lot. But in the movie, Jeff Bridges' character, the dude, his favorite drink is the White Russian. So for some reason, I got it stuck in my head that it would be kind of cool to make a White Russian. So I was serving as a Baptist minister at the time, so I had to sneak to a liquor store to get all the required elements of a White Russian. So I thought it would be kind of fun to make a White Russian, and I did. And I had one, and the next day I had two, and the next day I had three. And from there, I started researching online about different mixed drinks, and I went out and bought um, a few more uh, bottles of things to make different kinds of mixed drinks. And from there, I never really turned back. I didn't drink a lot, but I had, a couple of mixed drinks a night. And from there, it kind of took off and had a life of its own. I didn't drink heavily for a while. I, I would have a drink here and have a drink there. And I enjoyed the mixing of the cocktails and how to do it, and I would enjoy doing it. And I wouldn't get drunk, like super drunk. I would get tipsy, and I did that for a few years. Um, but I enjoyed the way it made me feel and kind of made me relax. It wasn't for probably about a few years, and my mother died in a car accident suddenly. It wasn't until after that that I started trying some of the heavier stuff. And, I live in Kentucky, I live in bourbon country. Then I started drinking that. And then I had some other family issues around the time of my mother dying. And I resorted to drinking a little heavier. And at that time, my marriage ended on my behalf because I made a bad choice, and my marriage split up, and there was a scandal in the church community because of a decision that I made. And I entered into a new relationship, and I began to drink extremely heavy. That was the first time I experienced blackout drunk. And from that point forward, I committed myself to drinking approximately, at times, a fifth of bourbon a night or close to it. And while I was in that next marriage, I drank extremely heavily, and my drinking was really out of control. And there were times I would taper off, and I realized I was drinking too much. Um, I went through a couple of programs where I cut my drinking out completely, and then I would go right back to it. I remember one time I had my drinking completely under control, and it was about a 6 month period. And one night, my spouse at the time came home with a pint of Fireball and said, "You've been doing so good. I think you've got it under control. Why don't you have a drink and celebrate?" And I don't know what the rationale was behind that, but it got me right back into drinking again. And um, I drank and drank myself silly. Why did I continue to drink? Why did I drink in the first place? I drank to self medicate. I've talked about that many times on this channel. I drank because of guilt and shame and stress, and because I chose to. I take full responsibility for that. I drank at night. Um, I never drank during the day. It didn't affect my job performance. It didn't affect um, anything else. I wasn't a day drinker, but when I got home at night, boy, I was ready to drink. And it affected my family life at home, affected my relationship with my children and my spouse. And um, I continued to drink because I thought it was the best way for me to deal with the inner demons in my head and the stress and the pressure I was putting on myself. And even after I quit my pastoral job, I picked up another extra job, and I was still working 2 jobs a day and putting myself through 12-hour work days constantly because I thought that's just how you made ends meet, and putting myself under extreme pressure all the time. Even if I'd just been working one job at a time, I would have been putting myself through all kinds of hell personally, just because of the internal pressure I typically put on myself as an employee. Um, and I have high expectations. I'm a perfectionist when I work. So started drinking kind of as a novelty, I guess. Um, but as I did it, I started realizing it was a good self-medicating numbing tool. And then when I realized I was probably way in too deep, that it was a coping mechanism. And then um, before mom died, the year before mom died, my father had died in an accident, and that ramped it up. And then mom died, ramped up even more. And then it was just a way for me to block out all the extra noise and do so in a very unhealthy manner. And as time went on and troubles mounted, it was a way for me to keep coping, and I regret all of it. Um, it was it was in hindsight the worst decision I've ever made. It made things worse. It lowered my inhibitions and made me make bad choices. It, it increased my stress levels. It increased my anxiety. It increased my depression. It decreased my quality of living. It made my relationship with my children worse. Um, they didn't want to be around me. And it's taken time. Um, After I quit drinking, I had to restore the relationship with my children. I had to restore the relationship with my spouse. I had to, and the biggest thing I had to do was after I stopped drinking, I had to figure out who I was, and I had to get rid of the alcohol, and I had to focus on who I was, and I had to concentrate on all the trauma I'd been through. I had to focus on all the anxiety that I worked through on a daily basis. I had to focus on the depression I went through on a daily basis. And after all the alcohol is gone, you have to focus on just you. And that's a lot of therapy. And that's a lot of meditation skills and a lot of journaling and a lot of work. And I did it on the Reframe app, and I did it with help from other people. I did it with coaching on the Reframe app. And there's just there is no replacement for community. And the community that I had on the Reframe app saved my life and got me through from the darkness that started the day I took my first drink to the light that began the day I decided to start putting that behind me on my own when I stopped. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. But I will tell you that the decision to end that cycle of alcohol abuse, alcohol use disorder, that is a decision that a person has to make on their own. And I hit my rock bottom when a lot of times, I mean, there were so many things that happened, so many choices I made, and so many bad choices I made when I was absolutely drunk, and things I did or things I'd post online or long Facebook messages. And I'm sure some people didn't realize I was drunk, or things I said to my spouse, or times I snapped at my kids that I wish I could take back, and I just can't. But the progress I've made since has been worth it. And regaining the trust of my family was the most important thing that has happened to me since I quit. So, why did I start? A novelty. Why did I continue? Because I thought I was blacking out all the things that were bringing me down, but all it was a big fat lie that alcohol tells you that you are becoming a better person, or you're hiding all the things that are bringing you down. But alcohol is the thing that's keeping you in that downward cycle. So I encourage you, if you are watching this and if you are caught in the trap of alcohol use disorder, don't fall for the big lie. And you can do it. You can put it behind you. You can stop if you choose to. And there's a community of people who are willing to help you stop drinking or drug use or whatever vice you're caught in. All you have to do is be willing to say, hey, I know I have a problem. I know I need to stop, and I know I need to get help. And I encourage you to start thinking about that today. And I will see you next time on Sober Without God, as I talk about the same kind of thing with religion. And I will see you next time.